Media and sedition. The Supreme Court's rulings on cases of sedition give hope the law will be re-examined. It has long been recognized that strident criticism of government will not amount to an attempt to excite disaffection and disloyalty towards government. Yet the archaic and colonial view that an intemperate attack on an incumbent ruler should be met with fierce prosecution for sedition prevails among many in power even today. In a significant judgment, the Supreme Court has quashed a criminal case registered in Himachal Pradesh against journalist Vinod Dua by invoking the narrowed down meaning of what constitutes an offence under Section 124A of the IPC, the provision for sedition set out in Kedarnath Singh 1962. Every journalist, the court has ruled, is entitled to the protection of the judgment, which said comments, however strongly worded, expressing disapprobation of actions of the government without exciting those feelings which generate the inclination to cause public disorder by acts of violence, would not be penal. The law on sedition has come a long way from the formulation of British-era judges Comer Pethiram and Arthur Strachey that feelings of disaffection towards the government connote absence of affection, hatred, enmity, dislike, hostility, and every form of ill will towards the government, to the more rational reading that only a pernicious tendency to create public disorder would be an offence. Yet it appears that every generation needs a judicial iteration of this principle, and that is because of two reasons: that Section 124A remains on the statute book, and that powerful political figures and their minions are unable to take criticism in their stride. Enacted to put down journalistic criticism of the colonial administration from an increasingly vocal press, Section 124A is essentially a provision which seeks to protect the government's institutional vanity from disapprobation using the interest of public order and security of the state as a fig leaf. It has often been criticized for being vague and overboard. Its use of terms such as bringing government into hatred or contempt and disloyalty and all feelings of enmity continues to help the police to invoke it whenever there is either strong criticism or critical depiction of unresponsive or insensitive rulers. The explanation that disapproval of government actions or measures with a view to altering them by lawful means will not amount to an offence in is not enough to restrain the authorities from prosecution. The mischief lies in the latitude given to the police by an insecure political leadership to come down on the government's adversaries. It is unfortunate that the bench did not go into the aspect of political motivation behind the police registering FIRs without checking if the required ingredient of incitement to violence is present. The court's verdict brightens the hope that the section's validity will be re-examined. For now, it is blow for free speech and media freedom. Diminishing options. The RBI has little room to use interest rates for achieving policy outcomes. The RBI's latest policy statement underscores the diminishing options available to it to address the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee left benchmark interest rates unchanged for a sixth straight meeting and reiterated that it would keep its policy stance accommodative as long as necessary to revive and sustain growth on a durable basis. Since its May 2020 decision to cut interest rates by 40 basis points, taking the cumulative reduction in borrowing costs in the wake of the pandemic's onset to 115 basis points, the MPC has found itself in a bind. While the first lockdown constricted supply and demand for much of Q1 of the last fiscal, pushing the economy into a record 24.4% contraction during April to June and causing full-year GDP to shrink 7.3%. The second wave has crushed all-round demand and consumer confidence. The RBI's May round of the consumer confidence surveys show the current situation index at a new all-time low, with 75% of the households perceiving the economic and deployment situations as having worsened further, and the future expectations index reflecting overall pessimism. It is hard to see the mere availability of low-cost credit helping revive the all-important consumption demand. The MPC acknowledged the bleak outlook when it slashed its projection for Q1 growth by as much as 770 basis points to 18.5% from the 26.2% it has forecast just on April 7. Banking more on optimism than hard data, the panel bumped up its growth estimates for the second half, resulting in an overall cut of only 1 percentage point to its full-year growth forecast at 9.5%. For this, it has assumed rural demand will remain buoyant on the back of an expected normal monsoon, while noting that widespread infections in rural areas, which likely led to a sequential decline in tractor and two-wheeler sales in April, could undermine future demand. The other factor the RBI is banking on to provide a fillip to economic activity is an accelerated pace of vaccinations over which it has virtually no control. To be fair, Governor Shaktikant Das has used the bank's liquidity spigot as a tool to address some of the economic distress. A series of measures focus on bolstering credit flow to the hardest hit MSME and contact-intensive industrial and services sector respectively. Still, the MPC can ill afford to drop the ball on its primary remittance. Inflation remains unabated, with international commodity prices, including crude oil, on an upward trajectory, and no signs of domestic policy support to check skyrocketing petrol and diesel pump prices. Inflation is sure to accelerate, posing a major conundrum to the RBI. Raising rates could risk hurting recovery, and not doing so could heighten inflation.